2 weeks ago, I had the pleasure of interviewing my friend Sadhvii. She grew up in Southern California and is now a spiritual leader in India. She and her husband, when she was in her mid-20s in the middle of a PhD program at Stanford University, decided to go to India so that he could find a guru. And she ended up meeting somebody who changed her life entirely, Swamiji, who became her guru. And she basically has dedicated her life to the spiritual pursuit. And she tells me, she says, Malcolm, I was not spiritual or religious at all as a child growing up. And yet after having these experiences in India, I feel so close to the divine every day. Her example is extraordinary. Recently she wrote a book, which is an autobiography. It's a spiritual autobiography, and we have spiritual autobiography going back for thousands of years. But what makes her spiritual autobiography unique relative to all the others I've seen is that she talks about topics which are very controversial. When I asked her, I said, what makes California spirituality unique around the world? The way she talked about it was that there's a kind of candor, a frankness, and honesty about things that in many other places people might feel ashamed to talk about or kind of sweep under the rug. And so my friend Sadhvii writes about menopause. She writes about what it felt like to be one of the women who is a spiritual leader but not included up on the stage where all the male leaders are, having to take a second place to all the male leaders. She writes about what she experiences in terms of sexual desire and how does she handle that in terms of her spiritual life. She writes about her own eating disorders and the abuse that she suffered as a child. And this remarkable thing is how much courage she has in order to share these very difficult and complicated stories with a mass audience. But what it does is it reminds me that we go through life seeing everybody around us and assuming that they all have their lives together, that they're competent and they're succeeding, and yet just below the surface, all of us are struggling and wondering how we're going to make it. And that's why it's so important that when the moment comes for you to share something that is profound or makes you vulnerable, how important it is in order to bring us together, in order for us to recognize the connection that we have not only with each other, but with the whole world, the connection that we have with God, how important it is to have those conversations in our life. Now these days, we're just kind of getting back into being really with people in a real way, not just online anymore. And so my prayer for you is that as you come back into the world, you will find those moments when you need to be vulnerable in order to help another person, and that you will be courageous in your actions and your efforts to do that. My name is Malcolm Clemens Young. I'm the Dean of Grace Cathedral in San Francisco, California, and this is More Good News.